Hello, good evening and welcome to this session where we're going to be looking at the listening paper, and we're going to be paying attention to those questions that are specific to the higher paper. So in the higher paper, those questions specific to that paper are questions 3, 4, 7 and 8. Remember, 1, 2, 5 and 6, they tend to be crossover questions, which will be slightly, in theory easier. Sometimes they do pose quite a few challenges, but generally little bit less obscure than the higher questions. So higher questions typically target grades B to A star. Okay, so that's why obviously they are a little bit trickier, and you have to, they give you a bit of a, they give you a run for your money. So let's start with looking at some revision tips. Generally speaking, I'm going to give you some ideas on what you need to make sure you're revising and how you could revise it. If you watched yesterday's session on crossover questions, you will see that these tips are pretty similar. Sorry about that, but revision is revision, let's be honest. And after that, we're going to look specifically at how you can tackle the listening paper. So the first revision, the first advice I would give you is that you need to pay attention when you're revising. Pay attention to non cognates. Okay, non cognates, super important. The higher you go, the more likely it is that they don't use cognates. Okay, so make sure that you revise, as I said in yesterday's session. It's words like if you for each topic, the words that are the furthest away from English. Okay, ayuntamiento, zanahoria, comisaría. When you are, if you are revising opinions, for example, okay, you've got me gusta, no me gusta, me encanta, but you might want to look at things like me agrada, another way of saying I like, no soporto, I can't stand, me molesta. Okay, so less obvious ways of saying things. In addition to the non-cognates, also make sure you look at false friends and bear them in mind. What are false friends? False friends are words that look like an English word, or words in Spanish that look like an English word, but they don't mean the same at all. So, for example, words like actualmente. Okay, you may be tempted to think that actualmente is actually, but actually it means currently. Okay, actualmente is currently. It comes from the word actual, which is current, plus mente, which is the English for li. Other quite common false friends are things like padres, meaning parents, which of course you do know, but when you're doing the listening, suddenly all these things get wiped off your brain straight away. And also things like parientes, which is not parents but relatives. Okay, so any word you come across that you think, I thought this word meant this in Spanish because it looks very much like in English. No, make a note of that and pay special attention to those, okay? Because they might use them. Also, make sure that you revise your general vocabulary. Okay, general vocabulary. All of the things that you should know since year 7 or since year 8, since whenever you started learning Spanish, numbers, colors, months, all of those that you should know, but because sometimes you're so busy revising the topic vocabulary and the really complicated things, you forget to revise the things that you learned at the very beginning. Those things are as likely to come up as some more complicated things. So things like numbers, things like months, days, seasons. Okay, so we'll call it dates. Things like times. Things like compass points, names of countries that might be slightly obscure, like Estados Unidos or Países Bajos. Okay, general things, please do revise those. Okay. While you're revising general vocabulary, special attention needs to be paid to verbs, general verbs. Very good knowing verbs that are specific to topics, but if you don't know the general ones, how, what ir means, what ver means, what, I don't know, tocar, saltar, escuchar, enseñar, that might be a problem. So do revise verbs, and also do revise adjectives, and revise them as opposites, okay, as groups of opposites, so that, for example, when you hear no es nada alto, he is not tall at all, in your brain this is the same as saying es bajo. Okay, so make sure you are revising these adjectives in pairs so that you're ready for when you hear negatives. Okay. And then, of course, revise vocabulary and, do it in different ways, mind maps, cards, using Memrise, Quizlet, however it goes, just from the list, whatever works for you, okay? But make sure that at this point you're revising tons and tons and tons of vocabulary. One good way, as I was saying, way is mind maps. So, for example, if I've got, I've got la escuela. Escuela. I might have here the word asignaturas. I might have salas, the rooms. I might have, actividades. Then in asignaturas, I might have, inglés. And I might have all the subjects here. I might have material, equipment. And let's say I am thinking, I'm thinking material, and I've got all the words that I've learned, la goma, el cuaderno, and then suddenly I think, well, actually, there's this thing that we use a lot in school. We've got our devices. How do I say device in Spanish? Oh, I don't know. If it's something that's very common, do look it up. Even if it's not in the specification, it doesn't mean it's not going to come up, okay? So do look words that are very common, words that you use very often, do look them up and add them to your mind maps, okay? So that if they come up, because they could, you know what they are. By the way, for the record, dispositivo is the word for device. Okay, so this as far as sort of general revision is concerned. Now, when it comes to the listening, what things do I need to bear in mind when I am about to do a listening or when I am doing the listening? Now, first thing, use time wisely. No staring up, not staring at walls, nothing. At the beginning, during, so between the questions are announced, and at the end of the paper, okay? At the beginning, go through the paper, go through the whole thing, read the topics, look at what type of questions you need to do. During, between the question being announced and the actual recording starting, sort of go through vocab, read the title, try and anticipate what the answers might be, and at the end make sure all, I don't know what's happened here, make sure I don't know what's happened here, yeah, here we go. Make sure that this is what happens when it's live, you see. Make sure all questions are answered, okay, and that you're happy with it and that everything makes sense. If you've left something unanswered, use your common sense and write an answer, okay. Another thing is don't panic, okay. Don't panic. Sometimes when you're doing the higher, you may be having very high expectations of yourself and wanting to understand everything. Okay, you are not going to understand everything unless you are a native person, okay? Unless you are a native, you will not understand everything. Why? Because the paper is designed so that you don't understand everything. Part of the points, part of what learning a language is about being able to guess and working things out. So it's done so that you have to at some points guess and work things out. So don't get stressed out when you don't understand everything. Okay? And at the same time, parallel to don't panic, don't be too confident. Okay? Don't be too confident. So use all of the recordings. Listen to the two recordings, check your answers, double check, triple check, make sure you're happy with your answers. Okay? It's good to be confident, but not too confident. Okay? They could get you at any point. Other things that you need to remember and to bear in mind could be. I've lost my list now. Here we go. Could be, of course, pay attention to how the information will be delivered. What do I mean by this? I mean that, if they say example, it means you will only hear what is being given in the answer to the example. If they're saying question 4, part 1, you will be given all the information in part 1. If they say question 4A, you will only be given the information that you need to answer A. If they say question 4, you will be given all the information. So make sure that before the recording starts, you know how much information is going to be given, to avoid, as it happens every year, all the information being given and you thought that only part A was going to be given. And then you have to rely only on the second recording, on the second playing, to answer all those questions. Okay, so do pay a lot of attention to that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was pay super attention to negatives and distractors in general, but especially negatives, okay? Words like no, ni, neither nor, ningún or ninguna, none, nunca, never, nada, nothing, nadie, nobody, en absoluto, not at all. Okay, things like excepto, except, salvo, another way of saying except. Okay, so make sure that you are tuned into these and any other distractors like, oh, quería hacer esto, pero hice lo otro. Okay, so making sure that even if you hear words for the different options that you have, you can single out which one is the correct option. Okay, so hopefully that will be, hopefully this will help you in your listening. So now let's leave the advice and the revision and all that stuff to one side, and let's have a look at how we're going to tackle our first question. This one is about arguments with parents. So important that you do exactly what I've just done now, and you look, first of all, at the title, arguments with parents. Okay, so it's going to be about family, relatives, disagreements, problems. So some friends are talking about the arguments they have with their parents. Read the list and complete the sentence by writing the correct letter at the end of each sentence. So I'm doing the right thing. I'm looking at reading out what I need to do. So so I've got here some options. Then here I've got there I need to write the 4 letters. So I'm going to have to write in each of these boxes the letter A to I that corresponds to these. So I'm going to have a look. So Jorge argued with his mother because of, and I've got this is C. So this has already been crossed out. If it's not being crossed out, because sometimes for some reason they don't, cross it out yourself. This is not going to be used again. Clara's parents object to her doing what? So I'm going to underline parents object, okay? Obviously it's Clara, parents object to something. Miguel's mother, his mother, gets annoyed with him for something. It's important that it's the mother. I don't know. He might mention, my dad gets annoyed at me for this, my mom gets annoyed at me for this. So it's important that you highlight or that you underline that it's the mother you are after, okay? So she gets annoyed for something. Paloma's parents, so both of them, object to something, and Daniel's father was angry, so he was angry for something, okay? So let's have a look at the options. What are they going to be angry or annoyed or upset about? So we've got not helping at home, okay? The first option is not helping at home. So while I am waiting for the recording to start, I'm going to think, what words might I hear? Okay, so for this, helping at home, I might hear things like tareas del hogar. I might hear the word ayudar, to help, or ayuda, help. The most direct translation would be ayudar or no ayudar en casa. Okay, this would be the more direct translation, but because this is the higher paper, we might hear that, but we might hear something a little bit more obscure. If I've got, if I'm feeling especially inspired and the time stretches to that, I might then think of activities. What activities are related with helping at home? We've got, for example, sacar el polvo, to dust. We've got barrer, to what do you call it? To brush the floor, to sweep. Yeah. Fregar, to wash, or fregar los platos, specifically to wash the dishes. We've got ordenar, to tidy up, ordenar, and things like la habitación, the bedroom. We've got other things like pasar la aspiradora. Okay, of course, you're not going to have as much time as me right now. I know that. But all of these, even if you can't write it all down, it needs to be sort of going through your mind. Okay, what things might I hear? What things might I hear? Okay. Now, next one, playing. So this would be A. B, let's take a different color for B so that we can see the different options. So B, playing video games. Okay, playing video games. What could I hear if there was something about video games? So first of all, video games, we know it's videojuegos. Okay, I might hear something like consola, games console. I might hear things like conectado, sort of switched on or connected. I might hear ordenador, computer. I might hear portátil. I might hear words like en línea, online, la red, the network, internet. This would be a bit of a giveaway. Okay. Next one would be listening to loud music. Okay. D would be listening to loud music. So I might hear, of course, música alta. And of course, I might hear a verb like escuchar. But instead of música alta, I might hear something about el volumen. It's the volume, the loudness. I might hear something about, for example, los vecinos, the neighbors. If you're listening to very loud music, you may hear something about it bothering the neighbors, for example. And bothering, remember, it's the word molestar. Something bothers. I might also hear something about maybe some type of music. I might hear things like rock. I might hear hip hop. Okay, remember hip hop. If you hear it in Spanish, you're gonna hear the H quite done quite strongly, okay? So these are all things that you might hear. You might hear none of them, okay? Remember, while you're doing this, you might hear none of them. But if you've thought of some things, chances are whatever you hear is it's got more chances of ringing a bell, okay? Next one, wearing inappropriate clothes. Okay, wearing inappropriate clothes. How would we say in Spanish? So we might hear the word ropa. We might hear things like no apropiada. No apropiada. Now, inappropriate clothes, why is it? Because it's too revealing. Okay, so we could have the word sugerente. Sugerente. You might hear things like, I don't know, una falda corta, a short skirt. You may hear words like decente, decent. You may hear words like formal or informal. You might hear, for example, if it's not appropriate because it's too informal, you might hear informal. Okay, so any, different possibilities. Another possibility, wasting money. Okay, so wasting money is malgastar el dinero. So I might hear malgastar el dinero, or I may hear just gastar, and then they might tell me ways that are not, clever ways of spending. I might hear ahorrar, because I might hear no ahorra. I could hear the word demasiado, too much. Demasiado. I might hear the word paga, pocket money. So saying what the person spends or misspends the money in. Okay. Being with friends. Okay, so if a parent has an issue with their child being with friends, what could I hear? So being with friends, I might hear something like salir con los amigos. I might hear things like pasar tiempo or pasar demasiado tiempo. I could hear, as I said, I could hear amigos. I could also hear the word amistades. Amistades is another word to refer to your friends in general, friendships. And I might hear also the word compañía. Compañía, company. Another possible thing I might hear about is about texting too much. So to text, as we know, is mandar mensajes. Mandar mensajes. I could also hear SMS, for example. I may hear things about el móvil, the mobile. But yeah, mandar mensajes, el móvil. I might hear again the word conectado, estar siempre conectado, and again words like amigo, amistades, etc. And not doing well at school. If the problem is about not doing well at school, we might hear things like, of course, escuela or instituto o colegio. We may hear expressions like sacar malas notas to get bad grades, or sacar buenas notas to get good grades. We might hear no saco buenas notas, for example. And I may hear words like aprobar to pass an exam, or suspender to fail an exam. Okay, and other words like estudiar, aprender, or words like asignaturas. By the way, estudiar, to study, aprender, to learn, asignaturas, subjects, or you may hear names of different subjects, maybe some that he or she does or doesn't like. Okay, so as I said, of course, you're not going to be able to make such a comprehensive list while you've got, when you're given the little bit of time between the question being announced and the question actually playing. But do this as much as possible. And if you don't want to write it down, or you haven't got time to write it down, fine. But at least you will have, in your brain, you will have gone through as many of these vocabulary, or as much as possible vocabulary as you possibly can. Okay, so I'm going to let you listen to the recording now, and once the recording has finished, I'll be back with the transcript and we'll look at the answers. All right, I hope it goes really well.
Example. Hoy discutí con mamá porque anoche me quedé fuera hasta la madrugada. Hoy discutí con mamá porque anoche me quedé fuera hasta la madrugada.
Question 3, Part 1.
Soy Clara. Mis padres me riñeron porque gasté a lo loco el dinero que me dieron. Soy Clara. Mis padres me riñeron porque gasté a lo loco el dinero que me dieron.
Question 3, Part 2.
Me llamo Miguel. Mamá me grita porque no paso la aspiradora y dejo todo desordenado. Me llamo Miguel. Mamá me grita porque no paso la aspiradora y dejo todo desordenado.
Question 3, Part 3.
Soy Paloma. Según mis padres, pierdo mucho tiempo enviando mensajes a mis amigas. Soy Paloma. Según mis padres, pierdo mucho tiempo enviando mensajes a mis amigas.
Question 3, Part 4.
Me llamo Daniel. Papá se molestó porque mis últimas notas no fueron buenas y temía que no pasara de curso porque no había estudiado bastante. Me llamo Daniel. Papá se molestó porque mis últimas notas no fueron buenas y temía que no pasara de curso porque no había estudiado bastante.
Okay, and we are back. I hope that went really well. I hope you managed to understand and get most of the answers. So let's now have a look at the transcript and what the answers would be. So we've got here the example. Hoy discutí con mamá porque anoche me quedé fuera hasta la madrugada. We've got here me quedé fuera. Me quedé fuera. I stayed outside. So this is our answer. Okay, so we know that. We don't need to look at it. We don't need to. Okay, so question 3-1. So, soy Clara. Ok. Mis padres me riñeron porque gasté a lo loco el dinero que me dieron. So we've got here the verb so we've got gasté from the verb gastar. Gastar, to spend. Gasté, I spent. A lo loco. This is like crazy. Like crazy. Okay? El dinero que me dieron. So the money they gave me. And I've got here the expression me riñeron. They told me off. Now, this is not too important because we know that that the parents were annoyed with her. So, that's not essential, but it's an interesting expression to remember. So, gastar has given us, and the presence of dinero as well, has told us that the problem is wasting money. So the answer will be F. Let's have the next one. Let's have a look at the next one. Miguel. So me llamo Miguel. Mamá me grita. She shouts at me porque no paso la aspiradora. Paso la aspiradora. Let's remember that's to hoover. Y dejo todo desordenado, untidy. So what we need is the one about not helping at home, which is A. And remember, pasar la aspiradora is one of those activities that we did think about, okay? It could be ayudar a casa, or it could be activities. Here we have it, okay? Paloma, what's the problem? Según mis padres, pierdo mucho tiempo. Perder el tiempo. To waste time. Enviando mensajes. And notice here they've used enviar to send. I suggested the verb mandar. Enviar and mandar are synonyms, okay? They both mean to send. Worth knowing them both. Mensajes a mis amigas. So notice mensajes and amigas has appeared. So what is the answer? H. Texting too much. And finally, Daniel's father. What's the problem? Me llamo Daniel. Papá se molestó. So he got annoyed porque mis últimas notas, grades, remember, sacar notas, no fueron buenas. And notice here you've got a little distractor, okay? Because you may hear buenas, but what's the problem? No fueron buenas. They weren't good. Y temía que no pasara de curso. Pasar de curso is to advance a year. In Spain, you can repeat a year if you haven't passed enough subjects, okay? Porque no había estudiado, the verb estudiar, bastante, because I hadn't studied enough. So notice how quite a few of the words that we had expected to appear have appeared. In some of the cases, we can't foresee everything. Oh, by the way, of course, the answer to 4 is I, not doing well at school. And yeah, we can't foresee everything, otherwise it would be a bit too obvious. But notice how it really helps us understand the recording when it plays. Okay, so I'm going to stop here for a second. Just a quick change of canvas. It will take a few seconds, and I'm back with the next question we're going to look at. And we are back with a new canvas, a new question, and yes, it's the all-time favorite question 4. Brilliant. It's the one where we need to write, or you need to write your own answer. It's not multiple choice, it's free text. And it tends to be one of the most complicated, yes. Now, this question targets grades, generally grade A, okay? Therefore, you need to bear in mind a few basics. Firstly, that the answer won't be obvious, okay? You need to bear this in mind. Secondly, the intention of the recording is not that you understand, or anyone, that you understand everything. Okay, so it's one of those cases where they're trying to see if you can work things out to an extent. Okay, so don't be too worried if you are not understanding everything. Next, the other thing you need to remember is that there's no need for full sentences. Okay, so just as long as you answer the question, That's all that's required. And finally, that you must answer the question, obviously, but no more. Okay, so don't give any information that is not being asked in the question. Why? Because, well, if it's correct, brilliant, it's nothing going to happen. But if you make a mistake, you might lose the whole point. Okay, so just answer the question straight, answer the question, and that's it. Also, of course, pay attention to how many marks each question is worth so that you know how much or how little detail you have to give. So we're going to start looking at the question and start thinking how we could tackle this question. First of all, of course, the title, Gap Year in Ecuador. So by looking at this gap year in Ecuador, I'm starting to imagine that the person talking, Maribel, she's talking about a gap year, so she's a young person. Okay, so I'm making this picture in my mind. She's going to be young. She may be talking about experiences. She will probably be quite positive, etc. Okay, so I'm starting to create a little picture in my mind. Now I'm going to look at what the questions are and start sort of having a bit of a go at how I might answer them. So the first question, oh, by the way, the first thing I need to make sure is that I answer my questions in English, because if you answer them in Spanish, even if they are 100% correct, they are not going to be, they're not going to count, okay? So make sure you answer them in English. So the first thing I need to pay attention to. First question, when did Maribel go to Ecuador? And I will highlight or underline or write here, the important thing is when. Okay, now if I'm after when, what may I hear? I may hear a year. Okay, so I could hear en 2012 fui. Okay, I could hear a year. I could hear a hace 3 años. Okay, I could hear, for example, cuando tenía, 20 años, when I was 20, okay? I could hear el año pasado or el verano pasado. So in my mind, I'm going to go through all these expressions of time that I know. Next question, where did Maribel stay? So keywords where and stay. I don't want to know the city where she went. I want to know where she stayed. So, okay, the answer, could it be the name of a town? Unlikely. Generally speaking, we don't. There are the answers that are looked for in these questions are not names or names of people, names of towns. So it's unlikely that's going to be a name of a town. Where could she have stayed? Okay, the type of accommodation. Could we have un hotel? Could we have una pensión? Could we have una casa? Could we have, if it was, who she stayed with, for example, okay? So bear that in mind. Why did she go to Ecuador? So the key word is why, and I need to give 2 details because this question is worth 2 marks. So why did she go to Ecuador? It's okay, let's remember again, it's a gap year. So she could have gone para estudiar, although generally speaking on a gap year you don't go to study, because that's why it's a gap year, otherwise you would be studying. She could go for, something like voluntariado, volunteering. She could have gone to trabajar. She could have gone to ayudar, to teach, to help. She could have gone to enseñar, to teach, okay? Different possibilities, different things she could have gone for. She could have gone to simply visitar, to visit, or aprender, to learn. What did Maribel learn about life in Ecuador? So the question, keywords here, what, learn, about life, and important, 2 details. So what she could have learned about life. Okay, so from the little knowledge I have of Ecuador, I might think is simple or sencilla. I might think it's, I don't know, feliz, happy. I could think it's, I don't know, at times maybe difícil, difficult. I could think there's, I don't know, maybe in places, especially if she went to do some volunteering, pobreza, poverty. Words like falta, lack of things might come up. Okay. And then to whom does she recommend a trip to Ecuador? And I need to give 2 details. So someone who's been to Ecuador on a gap year, who could she recommend it to? Okay, so he could recommend it to los jóvenes. She could recommend it to anyone who wants to ayudar, to help, or aprender, or anyone who wants, for example, una aventura, or algo diferente. So get thinking of possibilities. Afterwards, at the end, after you've listened to the recording and after you've listened to it twice and you have written your answers, these ideas may also help you write something down if you haven't actually heard it. So this is, part of your common sense trying to guide you into, through, okay, so if you don't hear it, that's, this could be a possible answer. Okay, so after we've done this sort of, brainstorming, and after we've got some ideas of what we might hear, we may not, but some ideas of what we may hear, let's now listen to the recording and then we'll be back with the transcript and the answers. All right, I hope it goes really well.
Question 4. A.
Hola, Maribel. ¿Cuándo te fuiste al Ecuador?
Me marché poco después de haber cumplido los 19 años y me quedé un mes. Lo pasé la mar de bien.
Hola, Maribel. ¿Cuándo te fuiste al Ecuador?
Me marché poco después de haber cumplido los 19 años y me quedé un mes. Lo pasé la mar de bien.
Question 4. B.
¿Dónde te alojaste?
Afortunadamente, me alojé con una tía de mi madre que me cuidaba como si fuera otra nieta suya y me contó un montón de historias de la vida de la gente indígena de esa zona.
¿Dónde te alojaste?
Afortunadamente, me alojé con una tía de mi madre que me cuidaba como si fuera otra nieta suya y me contó un montón de historias de la vida de la gente indígena de esa zona.
Question 4. C.
¿Por qué optaste por el Ecuador?
Siempre tuve la intención de recorrer este país lleno de belleza natural y conocer sus antiguas tradiciones que se remontan a siglos pasados. También quería ver los bailes regionales.
¿Por qué optaste por el Ecuador?
Siempre tuve la intención de recorrer este país lleno de belleza natural y conocer sus antiguas tradiciones que se remontan a siglos pasados. También quería ver los bailes regionales.
Question 4. D.
¿Aprendiste algo específico?
Comprendí que para mucha gente, especialmente los campesinos, la vida diaria es muy difícil. Muchos no tienen ni agua corriente ni luz en sus casas, pero no suelen quejarse.
¿Aprendiste algo específico?
Comprendí que para mucha gente, especialmente los campesinos, la vida diaria es muy difícil. Muchos no tienen ni agua corriente ni luz en sus casas, pero no suelen quejarse.
Question 4. E.
¿Recomendarías la experiencia a otros?
Pues sí, obviamente, y más que nada a los que se interesan por hacer una contribución positiva a la vida de los más desafortunados y van en busca de aventura y de pasar ratos inolvidables.
¿Recomendarías la experiencia a otros?
Pues sí, obviamente, y más que nada a los que se interesan por hacer una contribución positiva a la vida de los más desafortunados y van en busca de aventura y de pasar ratos inolvidables.
So we are back. I hope I hope what you heard made sense. And here is the transcript. So let's have a look at what the correct answers to this is. So the first one, we're after when did Maribel go to Ecuador? So, hola Maribel, ¿cuándo te fuiste al Ecuador? Hello Maribel, when did you go to Ecuador? Me marché, I left, this is from the verb marcharse, poco después de haber cumplido los 19 años. Right, so here is your answer in a bit of a cryptic way. Poco después de haber cumplido los 19 años. What does this mean? Poco, little, después, after, de haber cumplido, of having turned 19, okay? Los 19 años. Now, this is one of those cases where they're not expecting you to understand everything word by word. Now, the perfect answer to this, okay, the perfect answer to this question would be not long or shortly after having turned 19 or 19 years old. Right, this would be the perfect answer. However, when she was 19 is a perfectly valid answer as well. And this is what they're actually expecting you to write, okay? They expecting you that you will hear poco después de haber cumplido los 19 años. Oh, 19, 19. Okay? So don't worry about, as I said, things that are a little bit cryptic, a little bit tricky, okay? Y me quedé un mes. I stayed for a month. Notice here they've got a little distractor, un mes. So they're expecting some people to hear un mes, okay, this might be a month ago, for example, or last month or something like that. No, when she was 19. Lo pasé la mar de bien. I had a really good time, okay? Remember this expression, la mar de bien, a really good time. Where did she stay? ¿Dónde te alojaste? Afortunadamente me alojé con una tía de mi madre, ok, con una tía de mi madre que me cuidaba como si fuera otra nieta suya y me contó un montón de historias de la vida de la gente indígena de esta zona, ok. So, con una tía de mi madre, with an aunt of my mom, okay, with an aunt of my mother. So this is maybe a less obvious answer. We were thinking of something like maybe possibly, not likely, but possibly a town, possibly a type of accommodation, but no, actually they're telling us who she stayed with, not the type of accommodation. So be open to this type of thing, okay? So the answer, with an aunt of her mum's, okay, or with her mum's aunt, right? Why did she go to Ecuador? Why did she go? And we need two things. So the question, ¿por qué optaste por el Ecuador? And the answer, siempre tuve la intención, I always had the intention de recorrer, to do like a tour, to visit, to tour like properly in detail, este país lleno de belleza natural, y conocer sus antiguas tradiciones que se remontan a siglos pasados. So I always wanted to tour, to visit this country full of natural beauty and get to know its old or its ancient traditions which go back to past centuries. También quería ver los bailes regionales. Okay, so here we've got a bit of information that we can use for our answer. So, siempre tuve la intención de recorrer. Are you going to understand this? Some people will, most people won't. But things that you will, you would have been listening for. Belleza natural. Okay? So, because of the natural beauty, or to visit, to see the natural beauty. What other things? Conocer sus antiguas tradiciones. Okay, so know ancient traditions. That would already give me the 2 points. And then I can, or otherwise, y ver los bailes regionales. So a third option would be see regional dances. Okay, so notice that from all of these long answer, all I need are 3 details. Okay. What did Maribel learn about life? What did she learn about life? Okay, so aprendiste algo específico, and we've got comprendí que para mucha gente, I understood that for many people, especialmente los campesinos, peasants, la vida diaria es muy difícil. La vida diaria es muy difícil. So, daily life or life is difficult. Okay, life is difficult. Life is difficult. Y muchos no tienen ni agua corriente ni luz en sus casas, pero no suelen quejarse. So, agua corriente, notice agua, water, luz, light or electricity. So, no electricity or water, okay? And something important is that they don't complain, okay? So, this could be a possible third answer, okay? So, daily life is difficult, there's no electricity or water, and they don't complain. And notice, you might want to say, okay, for the peasants, daily life is difficult, but it's not essential that you mention the peasants. Okay, so notice often when they ask for 2 details, there might be more than 2 available. And then, to whom does she recommend a trip to Ecuador? So we've got it here. We'll have to lower the canvas a little bit. So, ¿recomendarías la experiencia a otros? Would you recommend it? Pues sí, obviamente, más que nada a los que se interesan por hacer una contribución positiva. So those who are interested in making a positive contribution a la vida de los más desafortunados, to the life of the most literally is the most unfortunate, or those who haven't got much, y van en busca de aventura y de pasar ratos inolvidables. So we've got here 3 things, more or less. So who would she recommend it to? To those wanting to make a positive contribution, and optional would be things like to those who haven't got much or who haven't got anything. Those looking for adventure. And then another possibility, the third possibility, of course we only need two, but our third option would be those wanting to have an unforgettable time or experience. Okay, so notice how when they ask for two, often there are more than two, but you need to pick two from them. Okay, so as I said, yes, this is one of the most, one of the trickiest type of question, but hopefully you'll get there by listening patiently, not getting too worried, using your common sense, and trying to work out and to pick the important expressions from everything you hear. Okay, so now I'm just going to do another change of canvas, go for our next question, and I'll be back in a few seconds. So we are back with a new canvas and a new question. In this case, we've got a question 7, which typically would be aiming at grade B. All right. So what this means is that the answers are still not gone, they're never going to be straightforward or all straightforward in the higher, but it's not going to be as obscure as in the question we've just seen. So let's have a look at this question. It's called holiday plans. So let's start thinking what could it be about? Okay, holidays, doing stuff. Okay, so what do these friends plan to do in their summer holidays? So it's their plans. So because it's their plans, I can imagine that everything is going to be expressed in the future, okay? What they're going to do, voy or for example, haré, iré, okay? Future tense. So I need to listen to the recording and put a cross in the correct box. And I've got this matrix, which personally I hate. Now, it might not bother you. You might be perfectly happy with it. I wouldn't be. Why? Because in my opinion, there is far too much stuff to do. There's far too much stuff to read, to move about, to look at things going horizontally, vertically. What is A? What is B? What is C? And if I was doing this exam, I wouldn't be able to do it. My brain would just melt, just from how the exam, what the exercise looks like. So if I was doing this exam, what I would do, the first thing would be write all of these things here. Okay, well, the first thing I would do would be, I've got the example, I've got that C has been crossed, so this means I'm going to cross this out. C is not going to happen again. It's highly unlikely that someone else is going to use C. I'm going to cross it out. And then I'm going to, next to A, I'll write prepare exam. Next to B, I'll write work experience. Next to D, help relatives. C, picturesque region. Learn new sport. And foreign exchange. Okay, so once I've got this, I don't have to be, bringing my eyes up here. Look, oh, I heard something about lessons and having to do a test. Which one is it? Oh, it's A, and A is here. Who was it? Was it Ignacio here? Yeah. So it shortens the time where I need to be looking around. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is start, like we've done in the other with the other questions, start anticipating what things I might hear. So if it's something about an exam, I might hear words like examen, obviously, or I could hear a word like prueba, and of course words like estudiar, possibly revisar, preparar, to prepare, preparar. I could hear aprender, to learn. Also things like notas, grades, or evaluación, evaluation. Okay, so any sort of words related to the world of exams. That's for A. For B, do work experience. Do work experience. So I could hear something like experiencia laboral, but remember that experiencia laboral tends to be more work experience in the sense of your how much experience you've got in something. When it's a person doing work experience as part of their studies or whatever, we tend to talk about prácticas. And then we might hear words like trabajar, to work, or trabajo. And of course, remember that this is the infinitive, this is to work, but because they're talking about I will do this, I would hear the verbs in the future. Okay, trabajaré o voy a trabajar. I could also hear words like empleo. I could hear words like expressions like tiempo parcial, part-time, or jornada completa, full-time. Or something like media jornada, half a day. Okay, so anything related to work, get it in your mind going. Help relatives. Okay, first of all, I need to remember the word relative is generally speaking pariente. Okay, pariente is relative. I could also have familiares o la familia. I could hear rather than relatives, I could hear the name of the actual relatives. I mean, not in terms of Pedro or Maria, but I could hear, for example, words like tíos, abuelos, primos. Okay, specifically what relatives this person is going to help. I could hear, of course, the word ayudar, or I could hear, okay, this help, what could it be? Could it be cuidar, to look after? Could it be I don't know, how else could you help some relatives? Cuidar, I don't know, could be, construir. They might want to build something for some relatives. I don't know. Just you could, come up with what specifically this person might be doing for the relatives. See a picturesque region. So picturesque region, we would have región pintoresca. But we might also hear words like zona or área. We might hear words like bonita. We might hear words like panorama, landscape. We could hear words like visitar, ver, and things like fotografiar. Why might this person be going to a picturesque region? Maybe they're doing some photography, for example. Learn a new sport. If someone's talking about learning a new sport, okay, so I will. I may hear the word deporte, I may hear the word aprender, but I may hear the word of a sport. And with this being higher, if I heard a sport, I may not hear football or, or rugby. I could hear words like vela, sailing, or alpinismo, rock climbing, climbing, or escalada, rock climbing, or baloncesto, basketball, or tiro al arco. So be thinking of sports, but especially those that are not cognates. That doesn't mean that a cognate might not come up, but if a cognate comes up, you're gonna identify it because it's a cognate. The thing is to have in your brain those that may be more difficult, okay? And then finally, go on a foreign exchange. So the word for exchange is intercambio. 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 The word for foreign or abroad is extranjero. Extranjero. You might hear things like estudiante. You might hear the name of the country where this person is going. And you might hear words like aprender. You might hear idioma. So aprender, to learn, idioma, language, or lengua. Same thing. Or you may hear the word of the language. So you may hear Inglés or Francés or Alemán, whatever language they're going to learn. Okay? So once we've done this, now let's listen to the recording, see if we got the guesses right, if we were on the right tracks, and also be thinking, is this helping you? So trying to foresee what words I might hear. Is it helping you? Hopefully it is. Right, I'll see you, or I'll speak to you after the recording, and we'll go through the answers, okay? See you in a minute.
Question 7. Example.
Arturo, ¿qué vas a hacer?
Yo me apuntaré a un cursillo de verano para mejorar mi conocimiento de cocina.
Arturo, ¿qué vas a hacer?
Yo me apuntaré a un cursillo de verano para mejorar mi conocimiento de cocina.
Question 7.
¿Y tú, Blanca?
Gracias a la generosidad de mi madrina, haré un intercambio con mi amiga suiza.
¿Y tú, Ignacio?
Iré a conocer los pueblos blancos tan pintorescos y lo pasaré genial.
¿Y tú, Rosario?
Sin duda, tendré que repasar muchas horas a diario, porque no he aprobado el alemán.
¿Qué harás, Jaime?
Pues tengo la intención de aprender el esquí acuático con un grupo de amigos.
¿Y tú, Blanca?
Gracias a la generosidad de mi madrina, haré un intercambio con mi amiga suiza.
¿Y tú, Ignacio?
Iré a conocer los pueblos blancos tan pintorescos y lo pasaré genial.
¿Y tú, Rosario?
Sin duda, tendré que repasar muchas horas a diario, porque no he aprobado el alemán.
¿Qué harás, Jaime?
Pues tengo la intención de aprender el esquí acuático con un grupo de amigos.
So we are back and we've got the transcript here. Let's have a look at our answers. So the first one was Arturo, which is the example, who said yo me apuntaré. Apuntarse is to enroll a un cursillo. Cursillo is a course, but it's cursillo is like a short course, and very often you find it in this construction, cursillo de verano, a summer course. Para mejorar, remember mejorar, to improve, mi conocimiento, knowledge de cocina, cooking, okay? So we don't need the example, but this example in particular, it's got quite a lot of interesting vocabulary that might help you in your exam. So let's have a look at Blanca. Blanca is down here. So Blanca says, gracias a la generosidad. Generosidad is generosity, okay? Generosidad. It's a cognate. If you see it written, it's clear, but the problem is, can you identify it when you hear it? Not so sure. Gracias a la generosidad de mi madrina, madrina is a godmother, haré un intercambio con mi amiga suiza, okay, with my Swiss friends. So from here, we've got a few words that you probably wouldn't have understood, like generosidad, possibly, madrina, possibly not, but we've got intercambio and suiza. So hopefully, exchange and Switzerland will give you the clue that Blanca is the one who is going on a foreign exchange. Y tú, Ignacio, iré a conocer, remember, to know, los pueblos blancos tan pintorescos. So, pintoresco, y lo pasaré genial. So, the word pintoresco is picturesque. So, notice how, in this case, it's a B question, okay? It's a B grade question. So, can you see how the answers are, some of the vocabulary is not that obscure. It can be easily foreseen as long as you know those words. Sin duda, so without a doubt, tendré que repasar, to revise, muchas horas a diario, many hours daily, porque no he aprobado, passed, el alemán. German, okay? Sin duda tendré que repasar muchas horas a diario porque no he aprobado el alemán. So this is the person who needs to prepare for an exam. And notice how here they are trying to trick you into possibly thinking that this could be the one about the foreign exchange, because if all you hear about this is alemán, you might hear, German, that's a foreign exchange. But no, be careful, because it's got the word repasar, to revise, and the word aprobar, to pass, okay, to pass an exam. So that's what's pointing you towards the answer A rather than answer G, okay? Of course, other than because of the fact that, we'd said that one was G, okay? But if you didn't have one, you just need to be careful, okay? This is one of those distractors. And finally, Jaime says, pues tengo la intención, I have the intention de aprender, to learn, el esquí acuático con un grupo de amigos. Esquí acuático, so water ski. Remember we said about non cognates. So although esquí is sort of a cognate, esquí acuático is a little bit less so, okay? We didn't get the activity right, but we were in the right tracks, okay? So what we need is learn a new sport, and here we've got the one for Jaime, okay? So do remember, careful with, if you think of sports or of anything else like that, if you're making a little list, tend to go for non-cognates. In B questions, the answers might not be necessarily super obscure, but they will still use some distractors like what we saw in Alemán, okay? So let me do one last change of canvas. We're going to go to our last question, question 8, the trickiest one as ever, usually, and I'll be back in a few seconds, okay? See you in a minute. Okay, and we are back with our last question. The typical, this will be, this could be a typical question 4 or question 8, depending. It depends on the year, but yeah, generally would be a question 8. And this is about preparing for an interview. Now, what things am I going to bear in mind for this type of question? So, first of all, I'm going to think that this is typically an A-star question, okay? It's worth 8 marks, so it is really important that I get it quite right. Now, the fact that it's an A-star question means that, again, the answers, like it happened in the question 4 we looked at, the answers will not necessarily be obvious, okay? And what do I mean by this? That when I look and I have a little brainstorm of what vocabulary I may hear, okay, the vocabulary, what I hear, will often not be a translation, okay? It won't be the literal translation of positive. In Spanish will be positivo, precise will be preciso, okay? So it's very often it won't be a direct translation, so worth bearing this in mind, okay? Now, the other thing we need to bear in mind, remember the use of opposites, okay? The use of opposites and negatives. Okay, opposites and negatives. And in a second, we will try and go through some useful vocabulary for the world of employment, okay? Because, of course, it's preparing for an interview. So the first thing I'm going to look at is the fact that, so Señor Tejero is talking about preparing a CV, and we need to put a cross in the correct box. Okay, so he is talking about preparing for an interview. So what this means is that he's probably going to be giving us some advice. So if this is an A star, and this is, they're giving you some advice, chances are you may hear use of subjunctive, okay, use of subjunctive, and possibly use of imperative, so giving orders. So if you don't know the subjunctive or you've forgotten, or you don't know the imperative or you've forgotten, please go and have a look. Okay, the subjunctive is what we use with expressions like things like espero que, quiero que. When you hope, expect, don't want someone else to do something, okay? There are many. Subjunctive is the case of the hypothetical, the case of that thing that hasn't happened but may happen, or you're hoping that will happen. So you may find verbs in subjunctive. So go and have a look and revise it if you don't know. And the same with the imperative. The imperative, we use it to give orders. Okay, things like prepare a good CV, prepara un buen curriculum. So that will be in imperative. If you can't remember or you haven't done it, please go and have a look. Imperative is pretty straightforward, but just to know what sort of, in case you need to know what sort of tenses or what sort of verb endings you'll be expecting. So let's have a look. If we are in the topic of employment, okay, some general vocabulary that we'll need to make sure that we know are, of course, words like trabajo, words like entrevista, trabajo, job, entrevista, interview, words like empleo, empleo, employment, words like expressions like presentar una solicitud, to apply. Okay. Also words like empleado, employee, empleado, o trabajador, worker. Trabajador can be a worker or it can be hardworking. Also a word like jefe, boss. And also a word like curriculum, okay, pronounced, which is what we call the CV most often, okay? So these are sort of generic vocabulary. This is generic vocabulary that you might encounter. Now let's have a look at more specific vocabulary that we may need depending on the questions. Let's have a look. So according to Señor Tejero, this is part one, according to Señor Tejero, your CV should be positive. Notice there's no example here, okay? So your CV should be positive, neat, or precise. Okay, so if it's positive, if it was positive, okay, we've got words like positivo, but remember, unlikely. Other than positivo could be, I don't know, things like adecuado, bueno, maybe exhaustivo would be imprecise, exhaustive, exhaustivo. Neat, we could talk about buena presentación, good presentation, buena presentación, o bien presentado. And for precise, yeah, exhaustivo, and then we've got things like preciso, exacto, or other things like que incluya toda la información, okay? Things like are not an adjective, but it's a sort of a sentence that describes it, okay? So again, don't be expecting necessarily an adjective, but some roundabout way of saying the same. Now, in here we could make sure that, for example, we underline or we highlight this should be. Okay, so should be what? Must include it. What must it include? Okay, so must include personal qualities. So cualidades personales. What other thing could we? We could also hear características. Or we could hear things more round, like ¿por qué eres la persona adecuada para el trabajo? Why you are the suitable person for the job. Okay, so again, might not be a noun in this case. Work history, we could talk about experiencia or experiencia laboral. Future plans, of course, we might hear planes or planes futuros, or we could hear something like lo que te gustaría hacer en el futuro, for example. You don't need to include, okay, so don't need, highlight, underline, don't need. What? Your age, okay, so age, edad. But you could also hear things like cuántos años tienes, or cuándo naciste, when you were born, or you could hear something like fecha de nacimiento, date of birth, okay? A photo, so we could hear foto or fotografía. I don't think there are many other ways of saying una imagen, but generally we talk about foto or fotografía. And your hobbies, we could hear pasatiempos, we could hear hobbies, or we could hear something like ¿qué te gusta hacer en el tiempo libre? Okay, what you like doing in your free time. So again, not necessarily a noun. And finally, your referee. Oh, for some reason this is not writing. Now, referee needs to know you how? Intimately. So, okay, íntimamente. Íntimamente. Well, conocerlo bien. And professionally, profesionalmente, o que haya una relación profesional. For intimately, you could also talk about amigo íntimo, etc. Okay, so these are just a few approximations, and remember, with it being an A star, chances are you may not get too many of this, but the important thing is that your brain is starting to work, your brain is starting to think about how, what you might hear, okay, in this case. So that's a good thing. Okay, so second part. And for some reason, part of my question has disappeared, okay? Second part is what advice does Miss Gomez give about preparing for an interview? So again, she's giving advice. So those things I said about, using possibly subjunctive, imperative, might come up again. So what have we got here? So arrive early. So what possibilities? Arrive early. So for early, you might hear pronto. You might hear a tiempo, on time, a tiempo. You could hear things like antes, for example, antes de la entrevista, bastante antes de la entrevista, con suficiente tiempo, with enough time, okay? Ask if you don't understand the question. And by the way, in this question, we are marking 4 out of 8. Okay, so 4 of these pieces of advice are correct. So ask if you don't understand the question. So we've got the word, okay, preguntar. You may hear words like entender, to understand. Entender. You may hear words like claro, clear, or claridad, clarity, okay, that points you towards this answer. Tell the truth, okay, so the truth is verdad, But you may also hear things like sincero, sincere, sincero, meaning the same. Look interested, so interesado or interesada. But also things like could be things like muestra interés, show interest. Okay. Come prepared. So for prepared, we've got things like preparado or listo. Okay, listo. But also things like dispuesto or dispuesta a, okay, ready to do something. Maintain eye contact. So we could talk about contacto visual, but you may also hear things like mira a los ojos, look into someone's eyes, okay? Or mira a la cara. Answer questions briefly, so to answer is contestar o responder. And briefly, we would usually say brevemente, briefly, or con brevedad. But remember, you may also hear, I don't know, procura que tus respuestas sean cortas o que tus respuestas no sean muy largas. Okay? So be ready also to hear sort of the opposite. And then speak clearly. So again, habla con claridad o claramente, for example. Okay? And again, you know, of course, you will probably not hear exactly this, but you may hear, you know, asegúrate de que lo que dices sea claro o se entienda bien. Okay? Entender, to understand. Oh, hold on. Entender. Okay? Se entienda bien. Make sure it's easily understood. Okay? So after this exercise of trying to foresee what we're going to hear, let's now listen to the recording. Notice there's part 1 and there's part 2, and I'll be back after both part 1 and 2 with the transcript, and we'll check the answer. Okay? I hope it goes well.
Question 4, Part 1 to Part 4.
El señor Tejero te dará unos consejos sobre cómo preparar tu currículum ideal.
Para empezar, lo más imprescindible es lo siguiente. Tienes que dar una buena impresión. No te olvides de incluir información sobre tu experiencia laboral previa. Recuerda que estos detalles también te pueden servir en el futuro. Aunque es importante añadir toda la información posible, la ley ha cambiado y ya no tienes que poner tu fecha de nacimiento. Es importante que la persona que va a escribir tu referencia te conozca bien, pero no es esencial que sea un amigo íntimo.
El señor Tejero te dará unos consejos sobre cómo preparar tu currículum ideal.
Para empezar, lo más imprescindible es lo siguiente. Tienes que dar una buena impresión. No te olvides de incluir información sobre tu experiencia laboral previa. Recuerda que estos detalles también te pueden servir en el futuro. Aunque es importante añadir toda la información posible, la ley ha cambiado y ya no tienes que poner tu fecha de nacimiento. Es importante que la persona que va a escribir tu referencia te conozca bien, pero no es esencial que sea un amigo íntimo.
Question 4, Part 5.
Ahora, la profesora Gómez te dará unos consejos para la entrevista.
El día de la entrevista es importante que sepas a dónde tienes que ir para que llegues con bastante anticipación. Al entrar en la sala, da la mano y sonríe. Hay que hablar con claridad mirando directamente a la persona que te hace las preguntas. Escucha atentamente. Contesta dando ejemplos de tus propias experiencias y diciendo siempre la verdad. Sé positivo, ten seguridad en ti mismo y cuando se termine la entrevista, despídete cordialmente.
Ahora, la profesora Gómez te dará unos consejos para la entrevista.
El día de la entrevista es importante que sepas a dónde tienes que ir para que llegues con bastante anticipación. Al entrar en la sala, da la mano y sonríe. Hay que hablar con claridad mirando directamente a la persona que te hace las preguntas. Escucha atentamente. Contesta dando ejemplos de tus propias experiencias y diciendo siempre la verdad. Sé positivo, ten seguridad en ti mismo y cuando se termine la entrevista, despídete cordialmente.
So we are back. I hope you didn't find that too complicated. There are tricky questions, but that's why they are A-star questions. So let's have a look at the transcript and let's try and figure out what the correct answers were. So the first thing we needed was what our CV should be. So we've got lo más imprescindible. Remember this word imprescindible is essential. Es lo siguiente. Tienes que dar una buena impresión, ¿ok? Buena impresión. Good impression. So, buena impresión. This is one of those cases where I would struggle, okay? As a native speaker, I would struggle between two answers. I would struggle between positive and neat. The correct answer is positive, okay? Tienes que dar una buena impresión. So if it's positive, you will give a good impression. However, as a native speaker, to be honest, hand in heart, I would probably have gone for neat, because to me, to give a good impression, it's probably that it looks good. Okay, the first impression is good. So to me, it doesn't convey as much positiveness. But in this case, thereafter, positive. Okay, so if you struggled, if you went for neat rather than positive, I don't think it's the end of the world. Okay, if this is the only mistake you've got in the whole paper, I think you can consider yourself. You can be very proud of yourself. So correct answer is positive, okay? Now, no te olvides de incluir, what do you must include? La información sobre tu experiencia laboral previa. So, work history. So far, okay, not too cryptic. Recuerda que estos detalles también te pueden servir en el futuro. Remember that these details can also be useful in the future. Okay, fine, I don't really need this information in this sentence. Now, the next thing I need to know is what I don't need to include. Aunque es importante añadir toda la información posible, although it's important to add all the possible information, la ley ha cambiado, the law has changed, y ya no tienes que poner tu fecha de nacimiento. So notice this is one of the things that we foresaw as possibly appearing, okay? So what I need to include is my age, fecha de nacimiento. I don't need it. Es importante. So what then the referee needs to know you how. Es importante que la persona que va a escribir tu referencia, so la persona que va a escribir tu referencia, notice in Spanish we don't really have a word for referee. We do for sport, but not so much for in this context, in the job context. te conozca bien, so knows you well. Notice conozca, this is a subjunctive, pero no es esencial que sea un amigo íntimo. And notice how no es esencial que, it's not essential. So they're trying to mislead you, they're trying to make you hear amigo íntimo, and so that you cross out, you cross intimately, but no, okay? Te conozca bien, knows you well. So they need to know you well. Now, if you use your common sense, again, you could probably have ruled out intimately. If you think of a work context, why would a job referee be a very, very close friend? No, of course that's not necessary. They need to either know you professionally or know you well. It's going to be one of those. It's not going to be an intimate friend. Okay, so when you use your common sense, that also helps. Okay, so I hope this bit makes sense. I don't think it was too complicated, other than the first one, which would have misled me. But again, I'm a native speaker. Possibly, if you're not, it's for you it was very obvious. Let's hope so. Okay, so let's have a look now at the second part of the question, and this is the one where Miss Gomez is talking. So, what does she say? She says, el día de la entrevista, the day of the interview, es importante que sepas, okay? It's important that you know a dónde tienes que ir. Notice, sepas, this is subjunctive. A dónde tienes que ir para que llegues con bastante anticipación. Anticipación o antelación are expressions to use that mean in advance, okay? Con anticipación o con antelación. So we've got that our answer, one of our answers is arrive early. Al entrar en la sala, as you go into the room, da la mano, shake your hand or offer your hand, y sonríe, smile. Notice that this da and this sonríe are in the imperative, that she's giving you an order, she's telling you what you need to do, okay? Hay que hablar con claridad, okay? Hablar con claridad, so speak clearly, mirando directamente a la persona que te hace las preguntas, looking directly to the person, so maintaining eye contact. We didn't get mirando, but we thought about mira a los ojos, so in the same theme. Escucha atentamente, listen carefully, there's nothing here about listening, y contesta dando ejemplos de tus propias experiencias y diciendo siempre la verdad. Okay, so tell the truth is our next answer. Okay, sé positivo, be positive. Ten seguridad en ti mismo, be secure, be confident. Y cuando se termine la entrevista, despídete cordialmente. So there's more information, but I think we've crossed all we've done all the crosses. So ask if you don't understand the question. There's nothing about that. Look interested, nothing about that. Come prepared, there's nothing about that. And answer questions briefly. No, it says it's important that you listen and answer giving examples. So there's nothing about being brief. So these are our 4 answers, okay? In this case, A, C, F and H. And notice that the answers may not necessarily be in the order that they are here, okay? Notice that hablar con claridad, it's towards the middle and the answer is H. Okay, and after hablar con claridad has appeared, we've got the maintaining eye contact, which is further up. Okay, so be careful, because in these questions, in these A-star questions, the answers may not appear or may not be given in order. Okay, so be really, really careful. So I hope that all of this has been useful. I'm sure you're really tired. I'm exhausted. But I hope it's given you a few reminders and a few more ideas to go and revise, go and, remind yourself of certain vocabulary which you may have forgotten. Okay, hopefully I'll see you back on Monday with the reading questions, some more tips, some advice, some more vocab reminders. And I really hope that your revision is going really, really well. Okay, so have a really good evening and I'll see you soon.